Well, hello class. Welcome back. We are in our second week of this course, and today we're going to focus on vocabulary and our novel, okay? So I want to welcome you back. I want to start out by telling you what we're going to do today. So today our lesson will be about 50 minutes, and then there will be time for questions and answers at the end if you have any. But we're going to start out by giving some announcements, and then we'll talk about the novel, chapters 1 through 12, and then our vocabulary book, chapter 9 and 10. So first, let me do some announcements here. Why do we have 3 books? This is a question a lot of students ask and wonder. We're in our 3rd level of reading, which means that this is the last level of academic preparation reading. So hopefully at the end of this course, you'll be ready to take and pass the TSI test. Once you pass that, then you are ready to take reading heavy courses like your English, history classes, things like that. So why do we have 3 books? The reason is because we're working at reading comprehension skills in 3 different ways, okay? The vocabulary is a foundational concept. It's a book that is going to give you a lot of basis for helping you understand what you read in other books, okay? And a little bit later, I'm going to give you some tips on how to study vocabulary, okay? We also have our textbook, which is focused a little bit more on paragraphs and sentences and understanding transitions and main ideas and things like that. That's very important for taking tests in certain English classes, history, lots of classes that require you to understand things at a paragraph level. It also has some longer articles in there, as does the vocabulary book. But in our textbook, we're focusing in on the sentence and the paragraph. Our novel is our 3rd book. This one is designed to stretch your understanding and your ability to read a lot of material. Okay, so when we talk about the novel, we're going to talk about larger concepts like themes, the character development, understanding the plot and how it relates to what's happening with the characters. And it's kind of a broader range of a study for reading, okay? And a little bit later today, I'm also going to tell you some ways that you can study your novel more efficiently, okay? So the next thing to look at is I want to announce our grades. So as it says in the syllabus, I have 2 types of grades that I'm giving you, and I'm giving you the quizzes and labs. All your quizzes will count together as 85% of your total grade, okay? So any type of quiz that I give you, the textbook quiz, vocabulary quiz, novel quiz, all of those count as 85% of your total grade. And the lab assignments count as 15% of your total grade. That equals 100, okay? So let me show you in more detail what we're going to be doing as far as grades, okay? I do not grade anything as far as textbook homework. I'm only grading quizzes and labs. So there's going to be 9 textbook quizzes total. They are all posted right now in your lessons folder in Blackboard. Okay, that's chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then chapter 12. Okay, so that's 9 total. Another quiz will be your vocabulary quiz. I'm only giving you 1 vocabulary quiz, but it's going to cover chapters 9, 10, and 11. And I will post that in Blackboard during week 4. So you can do that week 4 or 5 of this course. okay? And your novel quiz, I will post in week 5, okay? You have one novel quiz, and for your novel quiz, I'm going to post 2 questions about the novel, and you're going to pick one question and answer it with complete sentences. So your answer will probably be about 5 or 6 sentences, okay? So it's not a multiple choice quiz. Your novel quiz is a paragraph answer, all right? So our discussions that we do when we talk about the novel, you have discussion board questions. All of your homework and your labs with the novel is designed to help you prepare for the novel quiz, okay? That's during week 5 that you will take the novel quiz. So those are our 3 kinds of quizzes, and then we have 3 different lab assignments. All of the lab assignments pertain to the novel and questions about the novel, okay? So the end of this week, you have your first lab assignment that's due in Blackboard. You have to submit your answers in Blackboard, and I've already posted the lab in week 2 of the lessons folder, okay? Another thing I want to talk to you about before we go to the novel is I want to talk to you about my lab hours. I am available for video chat or phone call on Tuesdays between 11 a.m. and 12 noon, okay? So if you want to have some extra one-on-one time, if you're having trouble with one of the exercises in the book, or you don't understand one of the chapters of the novel, you want to talk about that. Anything you want to talk about, all you need to do is request time during my lab hours, okay? I can also meet with you outside of lab hours in a video chat or over the phone. You just need to schedule a time with me. And so send me an email and say, hey, can I talk to you about the novel? Here's my time that I'm available. And then I will email you back and say, yeah, that time looks good. And then we can meet and we can open up this Blackboard Collaborate and talk through Collaborate together, okay? So I'm here to help you with your assignments. You can email me. You can also use the discussion board as a place to ask questions and to get help. Okay, I want to hear from you. So I really want you to check your email, your MyTCC email, once a day and email me. I really want to hear from you if you have questions or if you have issues and problems. I love it when you email me, okay? And then our last announcement is about attendance. I do have to take attendance for this class. So the way that I do it is I check and see who has been looking at the lessons and logging into Blackboard and who's been doing the work and that type of thing. So every week, I want you to, at least the minimum would be logging into Blackboard, checking your lessons twice a week. And welcome, Alan. I see you there. Just joined us.
Yes, hi teacher.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. I've already started recording this lesson. I started at 1. So what I've been doing is going over the announcements here.
Okay.
Just talking about grades and ways to get help and my lab hours and that sort of thing. So at the end of this, after I record this video, you can go back and I'm going to post this video in Blackboard and you can check, you can watch the video and go over whatever you missed, okay?
Okay.
So
Yes.
it's no problem that you're a little bit late. Big deal. You can go back and check it. So I was just saying my last point here, the attendance check your lessons folder in Blackboard at least twice a week. And then I can see every time you check. I have a recording or a way of tracking which students check Blackboard. So I'm going to check that, and then as long as you're checking Blackboard and you're checking your emails, then I count you as present in the class. Okay, so that was one of the requirements that's in the syllabus. So, and by the way, feel free to ask questions as I'm talking. Don't feel like you can't ask anything. Okay, if you have questions, just click on the little raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen, and we can talk about this stuff. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's go to my next slide here, and let's talk about the novel. So, Alan, have you been able to read a couple of the chapters yet in the novel?
Yeah, I read almost the 12 chapters of the novel.
Oh, excellent. All 12 of them. Okay. So what are your thoughts about the novel so far? Is it difficult to understand, or do you like it, or you don't like it? What do you think?
It honestly at the beginning was very difficult to understand because I had problems with the reading. The words are very, very formal, and the
Yeah,
words that I never have been heard them.
right,
But like my brain and my mind was like a little bit of like accustomed reading, like there
right.
was at the reading, and then
Yeah.
between the chapter 3 and 4, I was starting to read very, very with a lot of fluency.
Questions? Or
No,
with
with um with frequency.
oh, you started reading faster.
Yeah, at
It was
the
easier. Okay.
mhm,
Um, that brings up a good point, Alan. I'm glad you said that because that is very normal for this type of reading. You know, when we
mhm,
look at our textbook, we see, one paragraph and then we answer a couple questions and then we have a totally different topic of another paragraph, and we kind of get used to that way of reading. And that's one of the reasons I have us reading a novel together as a class, because we need to stretch our reading abilities. And reading novels is really different from
yeah,
reading textbook paragraphs and essays and things.
mhm,
So that was my first point that I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about what the quiz would look like and then how you can read the novel more effectively. So our quiz will be during week 5. You have 2 questions about the novel, and then you're going to pick one of those questions. And I'm not going to tell you what the questions are because I mean until week 5, because I want
yeah,
us to really enjoy reading and kind of look at a lot of different things with the novel. And
mhm,
then when we get to the quiz, you will see the questions and you'll have a couple of days to think about it and then give your answer. But your answer is going to be in a paragraph, so you're going to write a little bit and
okay,
give your opinion about
mhm,
part of the book. So here we come to, how do we read the novel effectively? Well, the best way to read a novel is to take it in little pieces at a time. So maybe 1 or 2 chapters, and then you take a break and you think about it. The way I like to read is I like to have a piece of paper and pencil, and or if I have a book that's not a library book, I can write in the book and I can underline important things. But I would have maybe a piece of paper that has the different characters' names, and then as you're reading, you can write down some notes. What is this character like? What is
yeah,
important about this character? So you can take a few notes as you're reading. But the problem for a lot of um, English language learners is that they start reading and they say, "Oh my gosh, I don't know this word." And they look it up in the dictionary. And then they
mhm.
go back and the next sentence has another word. "Oh, I don't know what that is." And they go to a dictionary. And did you do that at all in the first few chapters? Did you use your dictionary a lot?
I I really used a dictionary, but then I remembered like the main idea of the reading, And then I started to search on the context to can understand the words that I
Good.
didn't know.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So is what we need to be doing is looking at the context. Okay, that's why in this class I'm going to talk a lot about context. You'll hear me saying that when we talk about vocabulary, when we talk about our excuse me, our textbook, we'll talk about it. There's a lot of things with context that we need to know. Why? Because when we read a novel, we cannot take 10 minutes per page and just be looking at words in the dictionary, right?
Yeah.
It gets it gets frustrating. It takes so long that you can't even finish your book. And then by the time you finish chapter 1, you forgot what it was about because it took you 4 hours to read one chapter, you know. So this is a different type of reading. So we have to use a different strategy. So Alan, you're already figuring out what to do, which is great. We want to just keep reading. If you don't know a word, don't worry about it. Keep going. If you keep seeing the word again and again, then stop and look it up, you know, in the dictionary, because it might be important to the meaning of the whole story. Like, for example, the word scaffold. Do you remember seeing that word?
Yeah.
Okay,
It,
do you know what a scaffold is?
yeah, it is a platform.
Right. And actually, in the picture right here
Yeah.
on the screen, there's a picture of a scaffold.
Yeah.
And it's a platform, and they used it back in the old days, the 1600s, 1700s. They used that to punish people as a way of some type of punishment, or they also used it if they needed to hang people. They would tie a rope on it, and it was a way where everybody could see that person that's on it. So in our novel, we have a couple of scenes where there's a scaffold. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's an important word. We might want to take a moment and go look up that word, maybe look at some pictures, you know, to help us understand that. One more thing I want to talk about with this book that's difficult is the language. Did you notice the old English words?
Yeah. I realized that there is a lot of old English words in the book.
Yeah. Can you think of one of the words? Did you write any of them down, or can you think of
Yeah,
one?
I let me open my notes and tell you one of them. Uh, right here.
While you're looking, I was thinking of the word trodden, Trodden. Trodden is a word that means to walk on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a word we don't use anymore. It's Old English. So this book, the setting is in the 1600s, early America or United States, right? Before we actually became the United States. So this is the type of English that they used when, you know, everyday English, which is very weird to us. So that's another difficult thing about this novel. But what's another word?
Like THOU that now
Yeah,
is you. People don't use anymore that, I think. And at the beginning, I didn't know what the book why the book said those words
yeah.
instead of you or your that is THU. No.
THU. Oh, THOU. That word is, we pronounce it thou.
Thou.
Thou. Yeah, and thou is another word for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why you see it a lot because, you know, and again, you have to look at context, right? To try to
Yeah.
understand, you know, and you could probably guess, oh, every time they're using that word, it's a conversation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
thou needest to go da da da. Oh, so you can guess it's probably you. But did you guess the meaning?
Yeah, I guess the meaning
Okay,
that
good. Excellent. So
yeah.
you're using your context skills there. So, so yeah, once again, we have a difficulty with this novel is kind of understanding these weird vocabulary words. But again, keep going, keep reading. And if you keep seeing the word again and again, then you can go and look it up. But try to develop what we call reading fluency. Just continuing on, and it will sharpen your skills. It will make you a better reader of novels and long stories. Okay? Um, so to review, how do you actively keep going, keep reading, don't look up a lot of words on every page. You know, maybe each chapter, maybe you could look up 1 or 2 words in the dictionary. That would be about average for this level of reading. And take a few notes in each chapter. At the end of a chapter, take a few notes. What happened in that chapter? You know, keep a record of that. That might help you when it comes to remembering information later when you're doing your lab assignments or your novel quiz. You can go back and look at your notes. So it looks like you're already doing that, Alan, which is great.
Yeah.
So you already sent me an email telling me what plot, setting, and characters are. So you were correct on those. The plot is basically what happens. The setting is the time and place. And the characters are the people. So today I wanted to focus a little bit on 3 characters. Okay. So we've got, these are some of our main characters, Hester, Arthur, and Roger. So, Alan, can you pick just one of those characters and then tell me something about them? Anything about them?
Okay. Hester.
Mm-hmm.
Hester was a lady who the people judged because she had a baby out of marriage. Like
Mm-hmm.
the baby
Yeah.
hasn't a father, and
Mm-hmm.
her prime was the people on her town. They required her to wear uh, a letter A, a
Right.
scarlet letter A, because it was the she did a fault, and wearing that letter in her chest or her like neck
Mm-hmm.
was it always she were always remembering that she did a fault, and
Right.
people thought that she always were embarrassing of that letter on her body.
Right. That is very good. That is a quick summary of the main character, Hester, right? The people in the town, most of the people in the town judged her. They ridiculed her, you know, pointed fingers. They didn't talk to her. They thought bad about her and her child. And that's the main part of kind of the first part of the book is it's about Hester and her in that town and what she has to go through and the way she's treated for her sin because it's considered a sin to have a child and not be married with that person. So that's Hester, and she wears that scarlet letter so everybody knows and can remember her sin. Okay, so the letter, what does that letter represent? What does the A mean?
Ad- Adulter?
Yeah,
Having
adultery. Adultery means, yeah, it means having relations with somebody that's not your partner, not your spouse. So that's the adultery label that's put on her. And then Arthur, we have Arthur, and he is we can call him the Reverend. The book also refers to him as Reverend, which is like a pastor or a priest. Okay, and uh, for your lab this week, you're going to be looking at this character a little bit more and getting some details about his life. And we also have Roger Chillingworth, and he is a physician, and he goes to help Hester in the jail, right, to help her and her baby calm down. So he's a physician.
Is Roger the doctor?
The doctor?
Yeah, the
Yes.
person who helped when she was in the jail and helped
Yes.
her.
Yes, that's Roger. Yeah, so he's considered the physician or the doctor in the town, and the people kind of they're happy he's helping Hester, and then later he helps Arthur. Okay, so Roger's an interesting character. See some different things about him as we're reading along, and so my next question would be in our notes here, what can we infer about Roger and Arthur? So I want to show you a part of the book. I'm going to take you out of this. Is it this one? Okay, and I'm going to show you a part of the book online here. Okay, can you see my screen where it says The Leech and His Patient?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the very beginning of chapter 10. And I highlighted a couple of sentences here. And what we're going to do is practice inferring. Inferring means to kind of get the idea of what the author's trying to say, but it's not exactly stated, clearly. So we kind of have to think, in context and look at clues. So I'm going to read it, and I want you to think, what does this say about Roger? Because we're talking about Roger here. It says, he had begun his investigation with the integrity of a judge, looking only for truth. But as he proceeded, a terrible fascination took hold of him. He now dug into the poor clergyman's heart, like a miner searching for gold, or rather, like a robber delving into a grave in search of a jewel that had been buried with the dead man. What in the world is this talking about?
The book is describing like the transformation of Roger.
Yeah, and who is the clergyman? That's an old word. Who is Roger's clergyman? Excuse me.
The clergy.
Yeah, he's talking about a person from our book. Do you know who the clergyman is?
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Well, you sounded so positive. You're like, yeah, that's okay. That's why we're looking at this. I like to look at the actual book so we can kind of try to figure out what's going on here. So the clergyman is another name for a person in the church, basically.
Oh.
Person of the church.
Like Reverend?
Yeah. So he's talking about Reverend Arthur Dimsdale. Okay. So now we know that. Let's go back a little bit. It says he began his investigation. Okay. What it means is, do you remember reading in chapter 9 and 10 where Roger, the physician, goes to help Arthur because Arthur's kind of sick? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. It says he began his investigation with the integrity of a judge. So he's kind of looking into Arthur more than just helping him with health. He's doing something more with Arthur. It said, as he proceeded, a terrible fascination took hold of him. He dug into the clergyman's heart like a miner searching for gold. Okay, so in this chapter, what the connotation here is that he's actually trying to get into Arthur's mind and heart and find out more about what's troubling him. Why Arthur is having so much physical problems is because something is bothering him in his mind and heart. So Roger is digging into that, and this is what we call a simile, where it says he dug into the clergyman's heart like a miner searching for gold. So we're comparing how Roger is kind of looking into Arthur's life to a miner searching for gold. Okay, that's called a comparison. This book has a lot of comparisons. They also have what's called a metaphor. A metaphor is when you compare something but you don't use the word like. Okay, so for example, I could say, my family is a huge tree with deep roots. We're all very close. What does that mean? We're not literally a tree, but you can get the picture in your head. Oh, you guys are like really strong. You've got, lots of history together, and your roots are deep. So we use this a lot when we speak. We also use it and see it in writing. Okay, these are comparisons. So, but I think it's interesting how it says terrible fascination. Terrible means really bad, right?
Mhm.
Or great, or like huge. So that's giving us a clue into this other side of Roger. Okay, he seems like he's pretty helpful guy, but he has some kind of other motive on why he's living with and helping Arthur. Okay. Now, any questions about that page?
No.
Okay. I want to look at one other page, and then we'll go back to our notes here. Okay. The orange or the pink color here, this refers to Roger again. All right. So let's look at that on this page. I believe this is from chapter 9. It says, with Roger Chillingworth's new life grew a new and dark purpose. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here we go. Roger has a dark purpose. If we're
Yeah.
talking about a dark purpose, what kind of connotation is that? Is that something that's positive and happy and good? Or is that something that maybe
No,
is
it's
not
like
good?
evil purpose, like bad purpose, negative.
Right. Dark purpose, the connotation is evil, bad,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then down at the bottom, look at this orange letters too. It says the community felt that it must be the hand of providence. Providence it's capital. It's like another word for God.
Mm-hmm.
The hand of providence that brought such a skilled physician such as Roger. So we're talking about the townspeople. They think this guy is great. Wow, he's over here helping our wonderful Reverend Dimsdale. Hopefully he's going to help him feel better. But at the top of the page, we saw that he's got a dark purpose. So I wanted you to see that in the first 12 chapters. We're looking at the contrast that the physician is helping, but at the same time, he has another purpose. And later, we're going to talk about and see in more detail what his purpose is in this story. Do you know can you guess what his purpose is, or have you read anything that gives you a clue?
No, not yet.
Okay. So this is something to think about, right? This is part of reading a novel is you want to ask yourself questions. Okay, what does it mean? And you're looking for more information as you're reading to kind of help you pull together the full story. Okay?
Yeah.
And then the yellow part here, this is a little bit about Arthur. It says the health of Mr. Dimsdale had begun to fail. Many felt that this was the result of his being too earnestly devoted to his pastoral duties and his frequent fasts and vigils. So Arthur's health is getting worse. He's getting very skinny. And when it says many felt that this was the result of him being too earnestly devoted to his duties. What do you think that means?
Devote. It's like he's helping him because he was very how can I describe devote? I mean, I know the meaning, but I don't know how
Mhm.
to describe it. Like have a faith on
Yeah,
him.
devoted can mean faith. Um, I'm devoted to my children. I'm devoted to my work. It basically means I care about it. I spend a lot of time with it.
Mhm.
So, what did the people in the town, where it says many felt, they're talking about the people of the town, like the people that are going to the church, listening to the reverend. Why? This is telling you what they thought about the reason why Arthur was sick.
Okay. Because like no, I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay. It's kind of hard to see it because again, it's not exactly stated in easy terms. Like
Uh-huh.
we don't see the word because, right? We don't
Yes.
see it clearly stated. So um, I like to do this exercise to help us practice looking at, okay, what does it actually mean here?
Mm-hmm.
So it says, let me put it in my own words. The people in the town felt that Mr. Dimsdale had begun to get more sick because we see this word, it was the result of, right? Because he was too means not good, like way over what is good. He was too devoted to his pastoral duties. So that means he worked too hard in the church. You know,
Oh.
he was praying so much, he was fasting, like fasting is when you don't eat maybe for a couple of
Mhm.
days, you know, you just don't eat, you just drink water. He was so, into his duty as a pastor that he was getting sick. He was working too hard.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it means here. That's what we call the implied meaning. And the townspeople really respected and loved Mr. Dimsdale, their pastor. Okay, that's what we can see from this yellow part of this book, this page. Okay, do you see that now? Do you kind of see it?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, good. So I want you to remember that because this is important for the story. The people in the town really respect Arthur Dimsdale. They think he's like the best pastor in the world. Okay. Um, but he's getting weak. He's getting sick. And down here it says he put his hand over his heart. You remember that? A lot of times in the book it talks about his hand over his heart.
Yeah.
So maybe that means he's troubled, like he's having a hard time. There's something like maybe some guilt or maybe some, emotional problems that he's having. And this book is going to kind of show you more about what that means, why he's doing that. Okay?
Okay.
So in our next lesson next week, I want to talk more about that. For now, I'm just kind of introducing you to a couple of these ideas and topics, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we need to get moving here. We got about 15 minutes left. So let me go back to my little PowerPoint. Okay, can you see that page with the scarlet letter on it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So back to our notes here. What can we guess or infer about Arthur and Roger? And I put in parentheses, I put a little sentence, and I want to see what you think. Roger might have a blank purpose for helping Arthur get better.
Roger might have a good purpose for helping Arthur get better.
Okay, he may have a good purpose.
No, bad purpose, because
Do you remember that page I showed you where it said
it was
dark?
a dark purpose for helping Arthur to get better.
Aha. Dark, excellent. Dark, or we could say evil. Okay, so he's helping him, right? Supposedly helping him, but the book is telling us other things. Like he's trying to get into his life. You know, he's got this crazy obsession with, you know, finding out what's in Arthur's mind, you know. Okay, so we're going to put there have a dark or evil purpose for helping Arthur. And then, so I want you to, as you're reading, I want you to think, what is that purpose? Why is he doing that? What's happening? Okay, that's going to be important. The second one says the townspeople think Arthur is what? But Arthur is actually plagued. Plagued means he has this terrible problem. What do you think?
Arthur is, it's not just one word. Is sick because he is working hard in his work, like
Yep,
praying.
he's working hard.
Mhm.
So they think he's such a great person, like he's just like this perfect, almost like an angel, or you know. So I would put in this blank, they think Arthur is an angel, or like a perfect priest. But Arthur is plagued by something, something dark. He always puts his hand over his heart, and he's getting sicker and sicker. So there's something going on with Arthur. Okay, it's kind of like a little mystery inside of our story. There's something happening to Arthur that people don't really realize. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind as we keep reading. And then next week, we're going to come back to this statement, and hopefully you can kind of maybe explain it to me more. What does that mean? He's plagued by something. You know, what's his problem? What's going on really inside of him? Okay.
Okay.
So next week we'll look at that sentence again. So your homework for the week with the novel, I just posted right here. I just took it straight from our lesson. You're going to answer a couple of questions in the discussion board, and I want to see what the other classmates will do as well. And I want you to take maybe one or two of these questions and put what you think is the answer, okay? Because we need to get some discussion going about this book. Here's some of the questions you could answer in the discussion board this week. What has Hester done? We kind of know that. We talked about that already. That's the easy one. What are other meanings for the A from the novel? Okay, the letter A appears a lot in the novel. It's not just adultery. There's other kind of meanings for A that come up in the novel. So I want you to look for that. And then look for examples of how the people in the town change their behavior towards Hester. Okay? In the beginning, they're just like, they don't want her around, they don't want to talk to her. But things start changing as the story goes along. And so I want you to bring up some examples of that and maybe explain why. And then how does Arthur treat Hester? You know, Arthur and Hester kind of have a few interactions together. How is that? You know, what's happening between them? And then how is Arthur important in Hester's life? So you can take one of these or two of these, whatever you want to try to give an answer for, and you're going to put your answer in the discussion board this week. Okay?
Okay, yes.
Okay. Any questions about this page before we talk about vocabulary?
No questions.
Okay, good. Do you feel like you kind of have a good idea about what's going on in the story so far?
Yeah, I think yes.
Okay, good. So that will be this week's discussion. We're just looking at chapters 1 through 12. And let's talk about vocabulary next. So we're doing chapter 10 vocabulary this week. I wanted you to do chapter 9 last week. Okay, so I know that's a lot of words. So let's start with chapter 9 just as a review. Do you need any help with those words? Page 82.
Notes. And yeah, the word creek, or it's TREK,
That's trek.
trek. It's like the synonym words like journey, trip, or expedition.
Yes.
Because
So when I think of trek, I think of travel. They both start with TR. So trek means going somewhere, traveling, a journey, something like that.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what about
So, yeah.
sorry.
No, I was going to give one more example for trek. We can use trek as a noun or as a verb. So you might hear somebody say, yeah, we trekked through 2 miles of wilderness. You know, I went camping last week. We trekked through 2 miles of wilderness. So that means we walked through it. We hiked, you know, we traveled, kind of a thing, like going through something. Okay. What's another word?
Zoomon. It's SUMMON.
Oh, summon.
Summon.
Okay, which chapter is that word in?
Chapter 9. Chapter number 9.
Oh, I don't see it on your
I'm
list.
not sure if I took it from the article or the words that already has to get.
Yeah, I don't see that word in
Or
here. But
probably.
summon means to call for something. Like, hey, come over here, I need you. That's
Oh,
summoning. I'm summoning you.
like call for.
Yeah, call for, like, you want somebody to come. Like you might hear somebody, I mean, we don't use this word in everyday English, but in movies or something, you might hear someone say, okay, I summoned the doctor. So that means I
Okay.
called the
Yeah.
doctor to come over. Hmm. Okay, anything else for chapter 9?
No, I think I asked you my questions. All my questions.
Okay, good. So let's take a moment to talk about the vocabulary quiz and then how to study for it. Okay, you're going to have one quiz, and week 4 or week 5, you can take your quiz, and it's going to be 10 words, all from chapters 9, 10, 11. So you might have 2 words from chapter 9 and 3 words from chapter 10 and 5 words from chapter 11. But total is going to be 10 words, okay, that I'm going to ask you about. So the quiz will be 10 definitions and then 10 sentences with context. So what you have to do is find the word that goes with the definition, and then you also find the word that is an example sentence for that word. So let's say, for example, I see the definition on the quiz for the word trek. So on the quiz, I would write the word trek, like, so let's say number 1, trek, and then I would look at the bottom of the quiz, and it's going to have a sentence that needs to use that word trek. So I have to pick which sentence, A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever word, whatever sentence. So I would say maybe number 1 could be trek sentence, and it goes with sentence H, you know, or whatever. So the quiz, you are going to give 2 answers for the quiz.
Okay.
The word and the sentence in context that it goes with. All right, so I have more directions on that listed on the quiz, but I want you to start thinking about the quiz now. You know, how can we study these words to be ready for the quiz? Okay, so my advice with these words is to go through and start each chapter by reading the article. Like on page 83 and 84, you read about the Star Trek technology. Look at the words and how they're used in context in that situation. Then go and find the definitions of the words, you know, by looking through the word meaning, and you have the answers to that. Did you already check your answers,
No.
Alan?
No.
Okay, that's very important because I do not want you to go through this and say, oh, you know, page 85, I know number 1 is B, 2 is C, but what if you're wrong? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you really, you need to go and check your answers, and I've given you all the answers in the lessons folder where it says answer keys, right? Do you know how to
Okay.
get there?
Yes.
Okay. So take the extra time. It'll probably take you about 15 minutes to check your answers, but take the time each week to do the work and in your book and check your answers. Then you can come back to our class video discussion and you can ask questions, you know, about those words, okay? A lot of our words have 2 or 3 different meanings. So you might think you know a word, but then it also has another meaning that you need to study. So my
Mhm.
advice is to take 3 words every day and practice writing the definitions and, you know, kind of memorizing the definitions as you're working through the activities.
Mhm.
Okay? Any
Yes.
questions about that?
No, teacher. No questions.
Okay, good. So, chapter 10 is this week's words. Do you have questions about that? Page 91.
Page 91. No, I don't have questions.
Okay, good. If something comes up later, you know, maybe next week, you realize that you didn't understand one of the words, send me an email and, you know, I can give you more examples or explain a word or whatever we need to do, okay? Um,
Yes.
so let's look back at the PowerPoint on the screen, and it says, why is context important? Context is important because why? Can you give us an answer?
I'm lost in the presentation. What will the vocabulary would look like?
Yeah,
Why is
go to the bottom. It says,
why is the context important?
Mhm.
How can I guess a word? Being a student at a university or
Yeah, well, let's first.
oh,
In your opinion, why is context important?
okay. Context is important because the not always the answer for no word is in the
Mhm.
dictionary. If
Yeah.
not that, you can look around the context and can understand what that word mean, and there is the importance of the context.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes a word is not clearly listed in a dictionary, or
Mhm.
the word, look it up, it has 5 definitions, you know, and you're like, great, I don't know which one I need, you know. So
Yeah.
context is actually more important than a dictionary or a translator. Context is a situation that you find that word in. So when we're reading, we have to use context. We have to look at what comes before that word we don't know and what comes after that word that we don't know. And then we try to guess what that word means. Okay. So here's an example right here. Um, I just have this little phrase. It's not even a sentence, but it just says being a blank at, okay. There's a word here in the blank that I don't know. But I can look at context. The context would be what?
The context, the situation that the word is found in.
Yeah. So what is the context in this phrase here?
Oh, school or university.
Excellent. Good. It's university. So we're talking about being somebody or something at a university. University is the context. So I don't want to put the word banker
Yeah.
or a ship captain of a ship. That doesn't fit in this context. We're talking about. So what if I have these two choices? I have either architect or professor. Which one would be better considering the context here?
Professor is the word that the context tell us need
Right.
to.
Probably the word professor. Professor is a word that goes in this context of the university.
Yeah.
So there's one of your questions or sentences in chapter 10, a similar sentence. Okay. So we want to pick, we want to kind of match. We're looking for clues. University is a clue to tell us which word would go in the blank. Okay. So that's, look at the next. It says context, the situation that the word is found in. So that's my definition of context. Let's talk for a quick moment about connotation, and then we'll be done. Connotation is the feeling, like a negative, positive feeling or emotion that's intended with a word. Okay, this is another very difficult thing to look at, and on Thursday, we're going to talk about connotation related to your homework from last week in the textbook, because they have some questions about connotation and context. So we'll come back and look at that again. But when you think of connotation, I want you to think of feeling. Now, a feeling is not stated in whatever you're reading. A feeling has to come out of the word, like you recognize the word and the feeling that usually goes with it. And the only way you really can learn connotations of words is by being in the culture with the people that speak this language. Okay. So, like, for example, when I went to Mexico, I had this word that I knew and I learned. It's called menso.
Oh
And
yeah.
I knew that word meant like a dumb person, like a dummy. So I just made fun of my friends and I would go around and say, in Spanish, I'd say, you're a menso. And
Yeah.
eventually somebody was like, okay, don't use that. You need to be careful with that word because some people take it the wrong way. And basically what they were teaching me was the connotation
Yeah.
of the feeling that goes with it. There are some words that you just don't say in Mexico, right? Or in the Spanish language, you're not really supposed to say that, like to your mother-in-law or to
Yeah.
your, grandparents, because it has a strong connotation. You have to be careful with those words. So let's look at an example. I have the word to use and the word to exploit. Okay. Now, if you look at the definitions of these words, they're very similar. To use something, we all know what that means, right? I use a pencil when I'm writing. I use the computer when I'm doing my homework. When you look up the definition of exploit, do you know what exploit means, Alan?
They're working hard with that thing. They are, yeah, like, mm,
I'm going to
they're
show you the definition in just a second. I want to see what you think. You said working hard.
or forcing to work hard.
Okay, so you're thinking about forcing. So maybe something, or what do you think?
Yeah, something negative, I think.
Okay, so you're kind of picking up on. Can you see my Google page here?
Yes.
Okay, it says exploit. And we have different definitions, right? So we know that. But let's look at the first one because we're trying to compare this to the verb use. And so we have the verb exploit. It says to make full use of and derive benefit from something. So basically, it's making use of something, okay? Which is very similar to the definition of to use, right? Look at here, to use, make use of. So we have to say, wait a second, it looks like they're almost exactly the same definitions. But what's the difference? The difference will be in a very different connotation. So when we use the word exploit, many times, 90% of the time, it's going to mean something very different from use. Like it's going to be something more negative. So let's look back at the sentence that I put on my screen here. Let me go back to this. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging in there with me. We're a little bit over time, but okay. It says my two sentences here on the PowerPoint at the bottom. They are using this area and they are exploiting this area. So the only difference is using and exploiting. So what does this mean in as far as context or connotation? They're using this area might mean they're just they're utilizing it, like it's for a purpose. This could be positive or negative. Like for example, you know, in my backyard, I'm using part of my backyard for a garden, or I'm using my kitchen as, you know, an office. Okay, it's not necessarily negative. It's just, you know, this is a purpose for this area. Okay, look at the second one. They're exploiting this area. Exploiting would mean using it a lot. You're taking things out of it and not putting back. So that's where really what exploiting means. It's getting everything out of it. So for example, you know, they talk about oil and gas companies when they go to build a plant or a drill in an area. You know, there's a lot of people that complain because they're exploiting the area. They're taking out minerals and substances from the ground. They're using up the clean water, right? They're putting pollution in the air, and they're exploiting the area. So that would be one example of exploiting. Okay, does that make sense? Do you see the difference in the connotation?
Yes, I see the difference.
Okay, so this, like I said, you're not really going to get all of this connotation from the dictionary. You've got to listen to native speakers using the language. You've got to read books and try to get from the context. You know, we look at the context and then we can find that connotation. You know, the oil and gas companies are exploiting this area. Now the water is polluted. Now the air is polluted. You know, oh, okay, so this is negative, right? So you can kind of see the connotation through that, through looking at the clues. Okay?
So
Okay.
we're able to find the connotation around the context too?
Yes, that's a good way of looking at it. You start by looking at context. Like, okay, what does this word mean? What are we talking about? And then we can get a more complete meaning of the word through the context. We can say, oh, so the word means this, and the connotation is negative.
Okay.
So we have our definition of a word, we have kind of the context where we use the word, and we have the connotation of the word, which is like how the feeling that you get, the emotion that's tied to the word.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right. Your statement was right. So these are strategies to help you learn words and understand what you're reading. That
Mhm.
is the reason I'm sharing these two types of reading skills. Okay.
Okay, teacher.
Okay. Anything else? Because we're pretty much done for today.
No, I think everything is clear.
Excellent. Okay, so what's coming up next? This Thursday at 10, I'm doing another video lesson from 10 to 11, and we will go over our chapter 3 and 4 of our book. And you can ask questions, but I'll give the main presentation about main ideas and supporting details.
Mhm.
And then lab 1 is due this Friday by midnight, okay? The
Okay.
labs, my labs have due dates because I want to talk about the novel, but I want to make sure you do the homework or the assignment first,
Mhm.
and then I can share more information because I have a lot of things to say, but I need you to do the work first, and then we can talk about it. So that's why the labs have due dates. So that's the only thing that's due this week. Don't forget to keep working on your chapter quizzes, book quizzes.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.